Alright, hey guys, so what we're going to do in today's tutorial is we are going to look at shading in around our eyes and across here. So what we're going to start by doing is taking our eraser. Again, there we go. Change the brightness a bit so you guys can see. Alright, so we're going to start by taking our eraser and we're going to come through and erase out our grid lines. You want to be sure not to erase out any of your markings that show where your shade are, or maybe where your eye's at, or anything like that. There we go. Alright, be careful of ripping up your paper at all while you're working these out. And I use the big eraser pretty much just when I'm working on getting the lines out across a really blank space. I don't really take it in to do the little guys. I use my small eraser to do that. So then I'll use the one either on the edge of my pencil, or if I have a kneadable eraser, I might use that. But the idea is that I'm getting rid of all of my grid spaces. So I've got the glasses on in my picture, so that kind of helps me figure out where this range that I'm erasing my grid out of right now is going to be at. Because I'm only going to worry about what is in the grid. Or sorry, not in the grid. In my glasses at the moment. That's going to be what I worry about shading today. One of the reasons I like to keep the grid elsewhere is because you never know when you might need to come back and use it just a little bit temporarily to fill in some of that space. Alright, so I am going to start by making my darkest darks. And so I'm going to do that in my glasses because that is definitely where it's the darkest. So here I need to work a little bit more on a point, but I'm still not pressing hard into my paper. I'm only using the point because I'm working in a very thin line for my glasses. You'll notice that I'm working in little patches. And the other thing I'm going to do is actually take my other paper with a grid on it, lay it face down, and I'm going to use that to keep my hand from smudging any of the lines that I draw. And so pretty much all the way around this line that I'm doing is that darkest dark. So I am just going to continue to add the same layer of color all the way around. So we're going for that darkest dark by just adding up layers. So as you can see, I am twisting as I go my paper around. Instead of pulling my hand at positions that don't feel natural to me. Now, typically, when you're doing your shading, you're always wanting to look at your paper, but I already checked that all the way around this part of the frame is that same black. So I know as long as I'm matching that same color all the way around, I will be good. All right, so I've got that black in for my first pair of glasses, or first side of the glasses. And now I'm going to come in and I'm going to do the same thing, but with my other frame. Sorry, didn't mean to scribble off the page there. So I'm just continuing to fill in that line all the way around my shape. Constantly flipping the paper as I need to. All right, so now I've got my glasses in there. And what I can come in and do next are the center of my pupils, because those are going to be the next darkest part. Now, I've already drawn in where that highlight's going to be, so I can just come in and shade out my pupil. Now, it's important here that you get the right size, and again, that we're not pressing really hard into that space. All right, we're doing small little circles to layer up our small little area. All right, so now I've got those in, and I've already got that little fleck of light in there that I'm working off of. So now, I don't know that everybody does, but I know that I do, have this ring at the very edge of my iris that is darker. So I'm going to come in and I'm going to draw that ring. And I've got it in both of them. So if I come in and look around here, you guys can see that. There's that ring around my pupil, and then there's another ring kind of in the middle. That comes around as well. So I'm going to come around and do that ring next. And then I've got a few lines that are coming off of my iris that are also a little bit darker. So I'm going to come in and do those. And now I'm just going to come in and add the rest of that shading in over all of it, minus that little white part where my eye reflects. And I'm just going to come around that pupil again and add some more lines. Until it starts to look right. All right, so now I'm going to go ahead and do the next darkest line, which is in the curved ends that end up becoming my eyelashes and eyeliner. So I'm going to take my pencil and layer up those lines around my eyes. And then as I start to work out from that point, I'm going to lighten it up a little bit. And then go back with a really fine line and darken it along the edges over here where it is a bit thicker. And we're not looking to do like where our eye makeup is or where our eyelashes breach out one at a time. And I have this little crevice back here that's a lot darker. And then I have the crease that comes across my eye that is definitely darker. So I'm going to work into that crease. And then again, there's kind of a highlight right above my pupil. So I'm going to try to avoid that point while I go in and shade up the rest of it that does get a bit darker. Again, trying to find those points where there's highlights and leave those alone. All right, so right up in here under this hair is still pretty light. So I'm just gonna come in and work in that lighter tone under the hair and work it all the way up and around my glasses. All right, so now I'm down into this shape. And the line around my eye stays pretty thin and pretty light. So what I want to start to do is look at how the shadow comes over my eye. So under that line, there is a bit of a shadow that's going to follow all the way through the white space. So I'm going to go ahead and color in that shadow. And then as it comes up from the corner of my eye, there's some shadow back in there. So I'm going to draw that shadow in there as well. And find that lip to my eye that my eyelashes are going to come off of. All right, and compared to the rest of the drawing, there really isn't much white around my eye, so I'm going to make sure to color that in here at this edge too, and kind of push that in. And I'm still going to come in and just soften up a little bit the line that I've got going around my eye. And make it look a little bit more like it is the shading in my eye than it is anything else. Because right now they still look a little bit outliney, and that's not what I want. So, and it's definitely fine to kind of constantly go back and forth between two parts, because the longer you stare at it, the less you're going to like it. So flipping in between the two definitely helps. And if you're ever thinking, gosh, that just doesn't look the way I want it to, take a break from it or take a photo and get some space from it. You will find that taking a photo gives you that space to kind of see what's actually there instead of what you're observing super up close. All right. So now I'm going to come back in and do that line where my eyeliner is. And I'll get this dark corner in here. And then this over here is definitely still dark. I'm going to go ahead and shade that in right up until I get to my iris. And then there's a little bit of shade that softens into a little bit of a highlight that's caught right here. And then up in this crevice, it gets a little bit darker again before it starts to lighten up over here. And then I can come back into that crease. Make it nice and dark. And then I can continue to put all of this into shadow. And so I do start to meet up with where my hair is at, and I'm just going to go ahead and work a little bit around the hair to add in the shadow. Alright, so it still stays pretty dark down in here. So I'm going to come up through here. And then down in this crevice in here on both eyes, where that little kind of sand trap is what I like to call it is, I'm going to come in and shade that as well. All right, so same thing in this eye, right? This is in shadow as well. So I'm gonna start to shade around and up to the eye on both sides. Because the white of our eyes isn't always white. Work back into that crease there. And then I'm gonna work that shadow back over from our eyelid. All right, so as you can see, those are looking pretty good. All right, and all I've done is gone back and forth on how much shadow to add. And I can always come in and add more to make it pop and make it a little bit darker where I need to. So maybe I noticed the shadow here could be a little bit darker. Definitely think back here could be a little bit darker. And then back here begins to shade up into my hair, and it's pretty dark too. There's a little pocket of light back here, but I'm gonna leave that. And then I've got my lines down here that definitely show that there's some shadow around this line that comes in. So I'll start to work up close to the eye, and then there's definitely some nice shadow right around here that starts to pull in towards the eye, and my eyelashes will be drawn in later over all of that. So I'm going to bring that up right around to the eye, and then just keep kind of putting in that middle tone around here. Got a little line through here that does stay pretty dark, a little one over here. Otherwise, I'm just gonna go ahead and keep putting in that middle value. All right, so now I've got that kind of bag under my eye. Hopefully you guys don't have one quite as bad yet since you're all younger. You still have your youth. And I'm gonna make my way back over here and see that I've got that line right in here. Then I can go ahead and come in and put that line in, because we definitely see it. And then I'm gonna come in and bring my shadow over here first. Pull that up to my eye. And then it starts to kind of lessen as I'm coming over. All right, and now I can begin to pull it up to meet with over here. And then I've got a big chunk of hair that comes in right through here. So I'm just gonna fill in the rest of this with that kind of medium shadow, because we're gonna put a lot of hair over it. So we don't have to worry quite as much about what that looks like. So I'll put that darker shadow down at the bottom and bring it over. And I'll work my hair back into that later. So now I've really got around my eyes looking nice. I might find that what I need to do is come in and maybe take a little bit more of that highlight out of the eye than where I left it before. So I can just go in with my eraser, erase that out, and then if I need to come back in and add some shadow that I accidentally erased out, I can do that too. All right, so now I'm gonna look at it overall and see if there's any spots that I should maybe add a little bit more dark to. And I'm going to decide that it needs to be a little bit darker underneath where my eyelashes are going to be before I come in with that eyelash detail. And then I'll blend it out just a little bit all the way around. All right, and again, I'm just layering. All right, same thing over here on this side. I'm gonna look and see where I can maybe add some more value. And just keep working it in. All right, and then with my pencil, I might come, or eraser, I might come in and erase out a few spots that pick up a little bit of light right underneath the eyelashes. And then come back in with my pencil and just drag a few lines for texture through it. All right, so I'm pretty happy with how that looks. So now I can kind of look and see that most of this area is around the same. So being careful about this edge that I have for my glasses where it's going to be that bright highlight, I'm just going to come in and with my pencil nice and turned to the side, I'm going to go ahead and lay in the rest of that value. Again, being mindful to watch for the side of my glasses. Gonna watch out for the nose piece on my glasses too. And go ahead and bring that up. All right, so I do have a little bit more shadow in here. So I'm gonna go ahead and add a little bit that leads up to this guy to bump in here. And then up in my nose, right in here, is where it starts to get a little bit darker up into my eyebrow. So I'll get that up in there to be a little bit more darker. Maybe have it wrap a bit around and come back into this little side, pull out some highlights there, and then maybe another one right there. And I just keep looking to see where I might need to add a little bit more texture, a few directional lines to show where the skin is wrapping. And then I think this side looks pretty good. So now I can come over and work on this side. And again, you can see for the most part, it stays pretty light up until we hit our edge over here. And this edge back here that meets with my hairline gets very dark. So I can probably get away with filling that in. Nice and dark back there. All right, so now I know that probably through around that much space, I'm gonna have that shadow that comes out. So I'm gonna go ahead and push that in before I start to lighten up and start to bring in that lighter value through the rest of my cheek. Again, careful to avoid the white around my glasses. And then I'm going to come around this edge again, just to give that a little bit more of a shadow over here. All right, and now I'm going to come in and work on these nose pieces. So the inside of the nose piece is definitely darker here. So I can come in and use those little marks to make it dark, but it does have a little bit of light on the inside. And then same thing with our top. It's got a line of dark, a line of light, some highlight, and then it comes back down and gets dark again. And then for the piece that's kind of like that rubber part, there's a shadow that goes around the whole guy that I can come in and kind of looks like an outline, but then I need to go back in and shade just a little bit. This little triangle shape in here, work it around. Maybe I'll come back in and work these lines a little bit darker here. And then right in here, there's another little kind of line. I'm gonna smudge it with my finger and then pull out that highlight in the middle to get that piece. All right, so I got nose piece number 1 done, and now I can come over and work on the other one. The other one is much more subtle, so I'm gonna work the little piece in here that sits right on the edge, and it's got a little highlight on it too, so I'll color that in. I've got a little bit of shadow, but again, it's just very light before it comes up and hides, and then I'll come in and shade this to match the rest. All right, now that I've got that done, I'm gonna come in and do my little cross piece here, which starts out nice and dark with our line that comes over here, and then it gets very thin when it comes in. And then there's a little bit of a shadow in parts of it. All right, and there we go. Now I've got my little cross bridge, and I can start to do that kind of outside piece with a very sharp line. All the way around it, just following that line that I've already got there until it disappears over on that side. And then it's gonna pick back up on the inside and come down the edge. Now the majority of this section is white, right, because it's reflecting light. So we want to be very careful to make that very thin line and still leave that white space. All right, so now all the way around, I've got my glasses in on that side. I can come in and do the same thing here. Come up to here. It kind of disappears right at the nose piece. Pops back in up here. Comes around the top to the bottom. And works in there. All right, so now I've got that piece all the way around, and you can see that just by making that little outside line, it makes that pop happen. Looks like I gotta define it a little bit more there too. All right, so now I got my eyes done, and I'm pretty happy with them. We'll come back and do eyelashes now that we've got that all set in. So I can now come up and I'm gonna follow the lines that are already set for my eyelashes because they're gonna curve out in a different direction. So I always like to trace where those are gonna be. I'm gonna make this line a little bit thicker. And then what I can do is just very slowly just whip out a few of these lines in that direction. I get a few of them in, and then I reassess which way they're going. And then don't forget that some of them are going to swipe down and up and be different sizes. Some of them are going to clump together a little bit more. Others will be a little bit separate. Making them non-symmetrical is what's going to end up giving them some realism. So giving your different lengths. Maybe clumping a few together to make a few look kind of bigger. And then make sure you're looping down and up. All right, so I've got my eyelashes on that side done. Now I'm gonna look and see how they come out with my bottom. So same thing. We want to see where they're turning. And give some of those lines in there. Go back with our little guys. You can go over a few of them again to make them a bit darker. And I've got my eyelashes how I want them over there. I'm gonna do the same thing on this side. Here I've got a few less eyelashes on the top that are really distinct. So I can come back in with that line. And kind of pull them out this way. And then come in and just pull out a handful. Through there. So there we go. I'm pretty happy with that. And then same thing on the bottom. I'm going to pull through and pull those out. All right. So I did come in and darken up this line around this eye, and I think I actually need to do that over here too. And even though we've put our eyelashes in, I can still go over and darken up that line behind them to get a little bit more color in here. All right, there we go. All right, so at that point, I'm pretty satisfied with my eyes. We're right around 38 minutes. So what I'm gonna go ahead and do is come in and do the inside of my nose really quick. Because all of this is in shadow up until this line that I drew. So I can come around and push this all into that same shadow that I have inside here. Don't forget to erase your grid lines as you go. I'm going to work it up into the hair. And then I'm going to make sure that it's a little bit darker down towards the glasses than it is up by the bridge of my nose. And then I'm just going to come in and take a few crisp, sharp lines to give that some detail to really pop. Now I'm going to come underneath my nose, or not nose, under this nose piece in here, and lay in that shape. And then it's got something that kind of looks like this that wraps around. It's pretty dark on top. It's pretty dark towards the back, and then it starts to lighten up as it comes around. So now I've got that little nose piece in there continuing. And then this line down here stays pretty dark So I'm going to shade up to that line. Maybe come around and give my glasses a crisper edge. And then go ahead and keep lightly working into that shadow until it comes down to hit that box. Alright, so now I've got all of that gridded up to here. I might come along that inside edge and just make it a little bit darker since we know it's in shadow. And I make it a little bit lighter as it comes out. Alright, so now I'm going to hop over here on this side through here and give this its little bit of edge left. Right through here. I'm going to outline that. And then voila. Alright, so my glasses do leave a little bit of a shadow. So I'm going to come in, and it's pretty much right underneath it. So I'm going to come around and give it that shadow to about here. And then I can see that on my nose, there's a little bit of shadow underneath this guy and around. And I can erase out my grid line that I've gotten here. And what I'll come to notice is that there's a shadow from my glasses line here that doesn't come right up to it, but it starts right beneath it. And it just very lightly curves over until it hits a little bit of shadow through here that comes down. And even through here, it's not completely white. So I'm going to pull this down and start working into my nose, because I'm going to see that all of this is that gray. I'm going to pull it all the way down through my nostril. That little flare that comes out there. Erase out my grid lines. I'm going to leave those little lines I left to remind me about highlight. So I've got one right here. And I'm just going to very lightly put in a little bit of value. Can push some value under my nose where I made this line over here. It kind of fades out through here until it comes back under where my nostril is, which is a very thin line. And it's darker, but it's not that dark. So I can leave that. Come over on this side where it is quite a bit darker. And underneath there, give myself that shadow. And now I can see on my grid that I didn't go in and map out that shadow. And because I've left it, I can come in and pull out kind of this medium highlight. It's more like reflected light there. And then still draw in where this shadow is. And now make my way over to come up the side and connect all of that. I can keep working my way on the outside of the nose to push that shadow in there. And then right along this edge here, I can come in and push that in too. And then right here along the edge, I can come in and pull out that highlight and then smudge it all together with my finger to push it all back. And then I have that really subtle shadow. So I'm going to go ahead And just do a little bit of value up the ridge of this nose. And around the ball. All the way up. And then I can come in and shade it. And erase out that highlight that comes right down the middle. Pull my finger through to smudge it again. And then I have this little line here to let me know that our shadow starts to disappear over here too. So I can come in and smudge. And block out that. Smudge down into my nose down here. Start to round out my nose a bit. And another train. I don't know that I will ever be able to make a tutorial where you guys don't get to hear a train. Alright, so I'm going to continue to push some of the value in my shadow down here. And around this nostril. Let's see, we're at 46 minutes. So I was able to get my nose and my eyes done. And then I'm going to work into this cheek a little bit. I'm going to go in and erase, there we go, the line around there too. And come in and fill back in the shadow a little bit to meet over here. Cheek line definitely gets darker, but then down here again it starts to kind of lighten up a little bit all the way over to my mouth, so I can start to put in all of that value. I can come in where I need to over here, pull out any highlights left in my nose I feel should be there. Always smudge around it. Bit of a highlight in here that I could pull out. Smudge again. And then maybe I'll go back in and add just a little bit of value through here. And smudge it out. Pretty happy with how my nose looks there. I could probably go and make some spots over here darker, because I'm going to look at here and see how this dark correlates to the dark around here, and I'd say that this tone and in here are closer than they are farther apart. So I'm going to come in and really push this shadow around here quite a bit. Work that shadow around the nostril in as well, and then it all kind of just gets lost right around my glasses down in this pit right before it starts to soften up here at the edge of our nose. Go ahead and come in and add this little bit of shadow through here now. Push it a little bit more now that I've darkened up the shadow that was next to it. Come in and smudge it. Maybe find that pocket in here now on this side and push in some of my dark shadows in this part of my face. So it kind of lightens up once it's out of this pocket. But this shape definitely wraps around into some of that nostril, which is what I think was missing. And then this continues to have a shadow that kind of pulls right in here before it lightens up. There we go. And then all of this seems to be around the same value. So after I push that shadow in there, I'm just going to go ahead and pull that across. Reset my grid line before I get over there. And start to block in all of that color. Keep adding in that value. I'm going to erase out these grid lines here. And then I'll notice that we have that darker shade that kind of slowly fades into the lighter shade in my cheek before it reaches my glasses and gets pretty light. All right, so there we go. In my last few minutes, I'm just gonna kind of tilt my light a little bit to see what could be darker. Gonna move it a little bit closer to me. And I definitely think that the dark over here in this eye can get mimicked a little bit closer. So I'm gonna come in there and darken up my pupil a little bit more. Gonna do the same thing over here in this one. I think that I could definitely push some more dark right along the line in here. And all I'm doing is going over it again lightly with another layer. Light is going to be key here. I'll wrap it through here. Get that line just to pop a little bit more. All right, and I think those darker tones are starting to match again. Come in one last time and go over those creases that we can see. Push those in a little bit darker. And a lot of what we can do is just keep looking and really pushing for that contrast. So faces have a lot more contrast in them than we might think, and that's really what's going to push your piece, is looking for that contrast and really getting all of those tones in there. So that hits 55, so I went a little bit over. So some of this retouching, you can do it another day. But I'm going to go ahead and call it, and I'll see you guys next tutorial.